we go. Okay, so I have a bit of a problem with my back today. So the truth of my back is, as it was revealed to me by my family, I had a soccer thing when I was a bit younger, and their solution to the problem I was facing was to fuse some vertebrae together with glue, which is as strong as what they'd use to put together like a high quality table. So yeah, if it just seems like breaking, that with your knee, would be difficult. I'm gonna try and do that, and I have been trying to do that, with like the very muscles of my back and my neck. So it looks like I'm doing. Actually, I don't have a good foothold on it right now. Yeah, that's more like it. So it looks like I keep doing that from time to time because I'm trying to work on this particular exercise. So, with no further ado, I know it's a bit sad, but as far as I'm concerned, what they did to my teeth was worse. And I think a lot of us have like teeth problems, you know. Yeah, like all the cavities are unnecessary. So yeah, it just looks like they sort of like took out like stone from my teeth. Like, yeah, it's just not what you should do. But yeah. Yeah, I've had some pretty bad ones, but as you can see, my teeth look fine. And that's sort of like, the flaneurs, African dandies idea is important here. I don't know, if I show you my teeth, it becomes a story, so let's just keep moving and here's some guitar. I'm resting the guitar on, I don't know where I guess I could show you. I'll do it. Can I with one hand? Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? I hope you can. I hope you can. You must by now. Yep, that's the mini fridge. Maybe you saw it right away. Of course, if I'm on the frame, I definitely can't see what's going on. So yeah. And yeah, in a certain way, like, I've upset the balance of the newspaper stack that this thing is on. And therefore, I'm a bit harder to see now. Yeah, so anyway. Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah. Yeah, there goes another one. So, here I am, and I'm standing instead of seated today. I'm sure you want to see a little bit more of my room. That'll come in other videos. Ugh. Again, I win in the end, but it's just sort of the story of my life of like that being too much of where my energies and attentions have gone to sort of like recover from weirdos, they used to call them, who just sort of land, through, the dome of your aura and, start pecking the ground. And, before long, you're trying to prevent them from entering the room with you. It's very strange, the weirdo. But yeah, later on, you find yourself in hospital because some weirdo, like, said he's in love and you did something to him, you know, by your inactivity. Well, you see it as inactivity, he sees it as, like doing the knots. you know. you know, you did not help me. What I wanted was, business advice, schoolwork. But he says he cannot live without me. He says you're simply too much to miss. Let's do that at some point. You know, even I have to leave Adrian every once in a while and go within for sleep. But eventually, somehow, I end up being in a hospital because the weirdo, happens to, yeah, I mean, a weirdo, for example, kicked me really hard in HIC, just underneath my kneecap, and now it's not something you need surgery for. You need to be left alone. And like, so I can't really sit. Like, airplanes are difficult for me for that reason. I can't really like sit. No, he knows who he is, and he knows this weirdo problem with me, you know. But yeah, like I can't like sit like that ride I took. It's a little bit of a story time. I without trying to shave the monk's head completely bald. I just have to settle for like a quick adjustable height trim. And yeah, just do it in like six passes over or fewer. So the story is I went to. Yeah, my back is also sort of an issue. I really do need to hold my back off when I'm standing. As you can see, I'm standing before a mirror, and like I can't really like this has almost no point to me at all. Actually, it's very difficult to do. I do it from time to time to sort of work on a balance issue, but it also is a bit of a stretch I get. But please believe me on this one, you can't like pull your body into flexibility. So all the people doing yoga hoping they'll be flexible people one day, it's just simply a role you find yourself being suited for because you have a stage to perform on. Like life is a little bit more organized than you think, So you happen to be, let's say, a politician. You acquire a politician's look. If you have to sort of be a, I don't know, an athlete, playing soccer, like, and it's supposed to be your thing, you'd be surprised that you won't be allowed to do MLS or like Premier League, anything like that. You end up being, yeah, I don't know, just it goes on. But yeah, point being, as you see this digression, and move on to another digression, and move on to another digression, and move on to another digression, and yeah, my body just simply comes in with interruptions to the scheduled flight plan, an itinerary, and I need to discuss like my health. For I have a lot of doctors who are very powerful, very spiritual, very competent, very knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than I am at this point. Except understand that I don't need command over knowledge to get this job done. Like I said, I've been suited up in a specific way to make sure that this project of disciplining the world, you know, is going to go, hitchlessly. I mean, I have to explain what I'm doing here, and of course, if this seems like I would need to, then you're new. If this seems to therefore be the case, I messed up my life, I caught a really strange spirit from smoking weed, maybe, and like he's controlling my course, in this particular life path of mine, and I have a complicated relationship with him, or the case might be. Understand also that I don't need to work for a living, and it may hit you as a surprise, but when I came to Ghana when I was, in America, and I just, been through a hellish experience, very hellish, one that the so-called parents I thought I had were uninterested in hearing about to the extreme. It's so interesting that, oh, that's a good crack. It's so interesting that like you are obviously like a good storyteller, so it's not like what you have to say is boring, but there's just a simply no-go area, for some people when you talk to them. That's not me nor Adri. He's actually hanging out in a bit of the corner. She's a picture in my on my computer, so I sort of have access to her lovely point of view. And it's hard to explain that, I mean, girls are interesting as a digression. I mean, you may be a girl listening to this yourself, so, boo-hoo, hoo. But, and hoping not boo-hoo, boo-hoo. But yes, girls are interesting in that while they're very quiet and, to boys usually, and even to other girls who are not in a circle, they usually won't say much about, like, what's changed recently. Girls say that's great to talk about. Says, no, I really don't want to like show to hold my body to like the audience. I mean, I can go as far back as like this wall, and you might get the sense that I'm a big man, not that big, but we're working on it. But as for like turning around, I mean, please, there are a whole lot of weirdos who watch this video and find some way to prove what I'm saying. I mean, I can tell you all sorts of weirdo stories. you know, Many of them are very very closet weirdos. I mean, I'm not the safest person in the world to like try to like secure for like you know some free time disposal. Supposing you're even as chill as like a character, like let's say Ed and Eddie. I don't know if you watched that cartoon. I did back in the day. I used to have like Cartoon Network for like 30 minutes before they sort of switched to I don't know, some sort of scheduled programming from GTV, something boring like adult education, or I don't know. Adult education is like after work anyway, so but just this is one of those like low key produced things. And yeah, they showed Ed and Eddie, and it's interesting. You should check it out. It's a bit more profound than it would come across to be, at the first. At least you all remember it if you're the part of the Cartoon Network watching, generation, which we still are. Cartoon Network is still a thing. Public service announcement, like I said before, but I want to say it again. Generation Z, if you're millennial, are our customers. So we have to find a way to appeal to them with our art before you start to try to find a way to appeal to them with our products. Right now, you might have heard that OpenAI has released a new, hardware thing, which allows them to like control like tabs of like the top row. It's about four. It's supposed to like be a one-handed control of like tabs, and it is the most useless thing I think I've come across. Since when? What has been more useless? I mean, I did try a segue. They say the fault is not mine. A segue is just simply, really weird to use. Like, you start, and the thing just starts seizing with, like, with stage fright. So, I have to turn around. Yes. No, a certain, image sort of flashed. No, don't do that. So I'm very sensitive about, my body, as you can imagine. A big guy just would be. And yeah, I mean, it's nice money. Yeah, there's like, double of what, we've always loved, right? So, twice the cheeks, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like, it's just hard to explain it. Yeah, you really are a bit sexy. No, not explicit, yes. And yeah, like, you really ought to enjoy, your life as a sexy person. Yeah, among people who aren't weirdos. So no big weirdos are a hard word for us. They're not particularly productive in the economy either. But, you see them everywhere. The on X. They're all there. Just surprisingly passionate about the Pope or, politician, I mean, given, I don't know how the Pope or, I don't know, whoever you want to imagine the politician would be, let's say, I don't know, maybe Macron or one of the prime ministers, I don't know how passionate they are about their own lives, I mean, I hope they want to stick around for, a little longer. But it seems like it's really nothing to get worked up about. That the office sends me to, present it to you, with conviction and, you see them sort of, it's like, that kind of push-ups and you and then, or maybe you're pleading, on X. Somebody is just incensed. He didn't talk about something different. He actually had what you should talk about. In fact, he just wants to buy you a beer and talk more about it, but I assure you there's something about your looks. He's unequanimous about he has a passion for action. This is not explicit. This is no explicit. Explicit. I'm not kidding. I'm trying to get to the scheduled events. Yes. Let's see. What time is it now? Okay, it's 20 minutes. Let's see. 20 minutes. Gone. Explicit. I'm feeling a bit fruity. No, don't do that. Why can't I? I'm unemployed, and you're on my YouTube channel right now, and you are not my producer. In fact, I am pretty sure. One thing. You've been with me for the past 21 minutes. And you don't have a good reason for doing that instead of minding your business. Sounds like a case of weirdo to me. Anyway, a lot of doctors are weirdos, by the way. I mean, who wants to do that? You know, this thing, you know, I mean, it's as if skin was. Lasagna dough. So pulled it aside to look closer at the tumor. This poor baboon, he says, call me a monkey. This poor monkey, you know, was somewhere, you know, trying to find something immaterial or tangible, you know. He was definitely a seeker. So, he was definitely a seeker. But you don't understand why you are the worst one to talk about surgery that you don't need. So, you know, sort of lost him. His soul just sort of slipped out to never return at some point. What he sought, he did not find. In you. So what is this anti-solution doing? You know? What is this, you know, vacancy of satisfaction coming to take me away for? He says he's going to auction me off. I haven't found it yet. What you auction me off for? So you have done it. You have gotten a number of people to laugh about that one. And yes, you are going to basically enjoy what happens next. Hassan is going to tell you exactly what happens to those who do that to a monkey. They're going to a part of hellfire so cold, the sun says, also Hassan Abudu, he won't be able to talk to the plant. He will need guess, internally talk to need to have for the first meal of the day. And that is all I can share of where he's going. As for those people who ignore the Hippocratic Oath, which tells you not to use knives, do not use a knife. Should I bring it up? I'll read the whole thing. I think it's more of a post about doctors and whatever else is. So yeah, Hippocratic Oath text. Okay, I got Hippocrates himself. That doesn't look like me. Anyway, it's supposed to. It's actually kind of a complicated portrait of me, but to understand, you know, how you can look at a face and, read certain things. Okay, big oath. What version would we like? Do we want? Okay, we have the classical text and the modern version. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll just read as quickly as I can the classical text, but I'll start with the important one. That is number one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Seven is an important number. So, the first one says, I swear by Apollo the physician, Asclepius, Asclepius, and health, and all heal, and all the gods and goddesses, that, according to my ability and judgment, I will keep this oath and its stipulation. Number seven is not to use a knife, even for stone, but leave this to people who do that work. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And mm-hmm, it goes on, right? Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing is, this is not the whole document. I'm going to see if I can find the whole thing so I can explain why you want to keep it, The last part is, if I fulfill this oath and do not violate it, may it be granted to me to enjoy life in art, being honored with fame among all men for all time to come. If I transgress it and swear falsely, may the opposite of all this be my lot. And there's a part I'm looking for. There's a part of this, I don't know if it's where I caught it from, but there's a part that says something like, if you do this well, you will become the doctor you wish to be. It's pretty much what I think I took from that particular moment when I was looking at it. Because, yeah, it may be granted to me to enjoy life and art, you know. And I thought of it as like enjoying the life of a doctor, like whatever. It's just what happens. You sort of read the whole thing from beginning to end. Anyway, point being that you don't want to use a knife as a doctor, right? There's a certain person who will be able to use a knife, and that's a butcher. A very, 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 very good butcher can remove parts of your body because, after all, you're not going to try to graft on a whole different path of evolution onto the human being. We have a way to make new ones. And the cliff notes is the easiest for most people is find a girl, and if she likes you enough, she'll basically take you through a variety of stages of the relationship, which will eventually not culminate, but, you know, have important moments of inflection, still trending upwards, really, you know. In life, you'll say downwards, hmm but yes, you're famous, and yeah, may it be granted for me to enjoy life and art. I do that. You know, being honored with fame among all men for all time to come. I've done that. And if it looks like being nameless as a doctor is supposed to be like a sense that you violated his oath, well, which doctor do you think is going to be remembered, even in your own lifetime? I know one who's very important in Ghana, you know, who I look up to as a guy who treated me when I was sick when I was a child, like around, you know, a younger man, you know, when I was like around 10, 11 years old. Yeah, you know, we're new to asthma, and he was sort of the guy who talked about, you know, just different things that put us all in a certain sort of mindset that, like, he will be needing drugs, you know, and it's fine. But to me, church, pardon me for saying so, I'll say it again, very explicit for, you know, mentioning that, you know. Yeah, 31. So yeah, again, more this plate cracking. I call it like a plate to crack with like those muscles. But eventually, you just keep working enough, it'll snap. You know. So yeah. Anyway, so the idea that like it gets a bit louder recording than most of the ones, because yeah, I turn up the volume all the way to 100% because I'm staying further from the microphone than I usually do. I sit when I'm podcasting, you know, in a chair, and you know, it's just a bit louder than it really should be. I think I'll sort of stand backwards a bit, and I think this might be a more comfortable volume to hear. I heard a spike when I said plosive, and if you know what a plosive is, you're doing well. You might read the same book. Exactly. I'll mention it. You should find it on your own. But yeah, it's nonfiction. So yeah, yeah. So anyway, that was a bit of a digression about surgery and this guy who got caught and you know put through a process which culminates in his leaving his body for the last time, and with the remains, they decide to hold a kind of open theater. I mean, that's the idea of the surgical theater. It's supposed to be theater. It's supposed to be able to attend from the general public. You know, if you watch The Nick, which is a great series, where I first came across one of my brothers called Andre Holland. Yeah, we're related. In families, you don't look that similar, actually. And yeah, we share different mothers, but we have the same father. Yeah, and just to be clear about it, my father does not need, and never has actually, to do the mm-hmm, to have right? Yes. And like I'm saying, if you want to simply create a new generation, be patient, acquire a girl's trust. Like respect which you should have for all boys and all men. Trust, like, well, there's a certain amount of trust and respect. I trust you to not collapse your reputation just because you found what I was wearing very appropriate clothes wearing, even inappropriately. There can be tests like that, but it seems like, you know, you know, you're not supposed to rubbish the whole reputation on one, you know, irrationally, like, you know, strong, you know, moments of emotion, you know. Then yeah, like that's sort of the idea. I have to move backwards because actually, yeah, the recording volume is pretty high, and I just know that from the waveform is going to be a bit of a sharper, you know, listen than like usual. Because yeah, it's actually going to work pretty nice. Leave it on 100, so I'll do that. So yeah, it just seems like, you know, that's where you can trust a person to do who you respect, you know, keep, you know, the respect, you know, maintained, you know, and even increase, you know, with good acts and good deeds, you know, in society, you know, to my viewing, if perhaps we work together, you know, which shouldn't happen that often in the future, girls should work with girls and boys should work with boys, But supposing you're the head of an organization, every once in a while I watch videos of you present. Like, yeah, like, there's a certain kind of like, okay, finally understand the idea of Elon Musk. But suppose he has a sort of, a public, success, or let's say a bit of bad luck. He managed to, either in success or, or bad luck, or failure, if you want to put it that way, like, sail through, even exactly the same as he's always been, for more or less, the situation. Yeah, it'll increase your respect, wouldn't it? Yeah, girls are looking to sort of see that happen, you know, with all men and all boys. But beyond that trust that you will not do anything reckless, the idea that you're someone I can talk to about like private matters, so I can sort of tell you like literally, I don't know, what I did, this weekend, you know, where, exactly like where, wherever I might have been, just generally speaking, like, oh, there you go, that's a good one, you know, and yeah, like that's not what you trust most men with and most boys with. Who can you do that with? Your family's members, and that's even just a certain number. Some are not really meant to, like certain kind of distant cousins are not really meant to know much about your comings and goings. Others who are kind of close to your nuclear family, or can become close, let's say, someone in your nuclear family, and basically, change, like, for example, this seems like, a very distant cousin of mine, happens to be a very good friend of mine, and happens to come to my house. He will get to know exactly where Adri is, whether she's at home or not. He's supposed to ask, and I'll tell him, right? But before that happens, just naturally, she'll have to sort of change his opinion of him, exactly, over time. So yeah, Erica says that's going to happen for all their families members. People just want to come by and get to know his son. We have to start to trust them, our goings and comings. Yes, that sounds trying to be very gradual and mathematical about what it means. So yeah, what it means to trust somebody. But yeah, like as you can see, the waveform is actually looking pretty strong from a distance. So yeah, I guess I can sort of record from wherever I want in this room. So yeah, I don't want to like turn my back to the camera because like I'm well aware that I'm sort of like, I don't know, if I start like walking, and it kind of reminds me of what I did back in like my I don't know, just arrived from 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 Saudi Arabia, days. I did this kids talent show, which they actually still have the video of, and I'm sort of famous for that one too. But yeah, I did this kids talent show, and I performed Will Smith's, or at that time, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's Parents Just Don't Understand, which I heard he heard about, which I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, and yeah, I basically just grabbed the microphone and just, like rapped along to the lyrics. Though Wayne says he actually has seen the video, so it's actually that's sort of funny. You can find it online if you really want to. But yeah, so I'm just grabbing the mic and say, yeah, parents just don't understand, right? So, okay, I'll turn a little close to the microphone so I don't have to reveal what I look like, this way, no, it's like asking a girl to be weird, and yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Anyway, so yeah, if I just want to like, occupy a little bit more of the room, or if I have to sort of like, drape something over the microphone, or should I say the camera, about the same. And in this sort of way, exactly, be able to move around more freely. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say from a distance. You're all fucked. You all wanted to do that, right? Yeah, So, voice, and I feel so much better because I can do this when I want to walk around the room and sort of feel more like myself. And yeah, like it's pretty cool. I just sort of cut the for those people who use iMovies to edit their videos, I just sort of cut out the black part, and just revert to the whatchamacallit, the audio only, title card or slide, presentation slide approach. I think it's called title card. Yeah, like your app is actually really cool. We're sort of using it in all sorts of cool places. Yeah. Don't worry about it. We are paying you in a way you actually enjoy, so we don't end up pulling you that kind of way. It's very cool that the systems sort of coming alive, because people understand that if you don't do the right thing, you simply take my code, and sort of help myself to that. You don't know what will happen later on. And yeah, it's a heavy, heavy, heavy fine. I owe the system in a completely Islamic way. Very halal, super halal way. Do I own the system too? Yeah, I'm just trying to play some music to, yeah, oof. I'm seated on my bed, for those who want to know what I'm doing. And I'm going to record the rest of this podcast seated because it's very difficult to sort of stay on my feet, but you need a connection to the ground sometime to present. Which means that people are doing all sorts of really difficult work seated when they should be able to stand and move around, and a cameraman should be able to, like, keep, if it's one of those radio show things where they use the microphone and the cameras to sort of create stuff for YouTube, do something similar, but a radio show really should be trying to make money there. I understand that life is tough and you have to sort of, move in the direction the industry moves, but I understand that if you really want to follow the industry and not end up, being your own person and heading your own way when it comes to business, you have to pay a penalty. A very steep one. You won't want to pay it if you knew what the penalty was. You'll make a whole lot of efforts to avoid it. So that's all I'll say to those who are just copying everyone else and doing these sort of shows. For example, that guy who I just mentioned, you may know him. Yeah, he has a huge penalty to pay for making me have to come and save his life. He's a YouTuber, that's all I'll say. And it just seems like you can catch a whole lot of trouble by watching content that might be engaging, might even be the source of a new way of looking at life and a new perspective and a new understanding of what's out there. After all, I haven't lived in America for over a decade. I don't feel the absence. I don't feel what's missing. I'm entirely fine with my life in Ghana, provided certain kinds of things are available to me. I do want to continue being a software engineer. I do need access to certain books, that I could order online. If only there's a way to mail books to Africa,
and I've been trying to figure that out since the beginning of Amazon. I put it on my list of things I'll do if I was going to be a president. By the way, I do plan on running again. I did serve in a bit of frustration at how silly the world has ended up looking. Fear there's nothing I can do as a politician. What am I going to do? Like, one, that the system is sort of rigged to prevent you from running a new company is entirely the truth. And it's basically a kind of business. The thing to understand about business is that it's not so much that you're like aiming to make currency flow in your direction, but if the idea of a currency is this sort of like like someone who's famous or a person of the day comes towards you, right? So it looks like everyone wants to know more about the dollar bills. Everyone wants to know about the presidents, who are all famous men, you know, more famous than anything you've seen so far. And what George Washington was able to achieve worldwide was a whole different idea of like even just geography. The idea that the world has suddenly moved from a Eurocentric model of where all the action is to like an American centric, which is basically separated from the rest of the world by two huge oceans, and on their own, and sui generis, as you might say in Latin, they've managed to create the new center of like action in the English language that basically spread the whole world entire because of you know us, the black men, and to a minor extent the black girls, but mostly the black men making content, of all kinds. Before hip hop, there was jazz, and honestly, hip hop is supposed to encourage you to look into jazz. You look at who sampled, you might hear, let's say, Mask Off, you're like, "Oh, okay, that sounds like a kind of cool flute. I want to hear more of this song, I want to sort of like soak in, the whole of that vibe entirely, you know. And yeah, you can check it out. I forget some more deals about the song, but I believe it was made like almost like a field recording of like people in jail or something like that. I know there's someone who actually, went to a jail and had a singing competition, and the winners went and made a sort of a soul record. You can hear them, and it's basically crooning about love and stuff. It's not impossible to go to a jail and do that today, but it's a very different time in America, you know. And yeah, that was like kind of one of the places you could go to get education. Even Malcolm X testifies to the same, that he didn't have a way to get access to a library until he was in jail. And that's where he started to soak in all the books he needed to basically do the next part of his life. So yeah, I never know where you might have to end up going. So those people who think I basically messed up my life and, I'm, some sort of a degenerate of some kind, basically making a muck of the world. I mean, there are plenty of people in Ghana who have this, really considered idea of like what actually matters and what doesn't. What matters, of course, is the Ghanaian city even more than the American dollar. They have a sense of like, like an infinite supply of this stuff, which comes from relationships with big people, big men, and big, talkers. As for like, sense of like Elon Musk and the flamethrower he, fires, in these movies he has to create, and the fact he, was working with Donald Trump. They say that's like, lowbrow, entertainment for, those who are convinced by kind of, like there's a certain kind of a conceitedness that really is very, very Ghanaian, and very, very like, West African in a certain way. You might hear Dangote and think, Nigerian. Like, there's a certain kind of Ghana really is the center of a lot of stories, about like how the world became the world. You want to know like a certain sense of like, yeah, you can't keep going on forever, but you want a certain sense of like, how the world came to be the world. Like, why is a certain kind of like even just the idea of like showering every day. It really is a Ghanaian thing to like, insist you must. It wouldn't be the thing, at a certain stage of your life to like not. But when you come here, that you must shower every day. That you mustn't you mustn't like grow your hair. You must have like short hair. Like, I've been asked to cut my hair like 20 times here, and I've never had my hair as long as an inch. It's just because I'm going gray, but even before that point, when I wasn't going gray, this thing is, yeah, your hair is too bushy, cut it. And bushy, I mean, I don't know, like, ever since I was even, in junior high school, or junior secondary school, as we used to call it, like, they used to call it my bushy so-called hair. I'm like, okay, if I can't grow an afro in Africa, what's going on? Like, why are the children and now the adults who are older than the children, that would be around my age or something like that, or if we were to call that my age. But yeah, why are the adults who are older than us and like the children at the same time too spouting this nonsense about you can't have Afro in Ghana? I remember in a taxi cab I was driving around once. The taxi driver asked me, like, so why do African Americans like having bushy hair? I'm like, whoa, you know? So I mean, the idea that your natural hair, and of course the whole thing about straightening your hair or lightening your skin being like a big thing in African American communities. You know, the idea of, you've seen Nat King Cole with straightened hair. You might have heard of yellow fever, which is sort of a big long story about like many different topics at once. It's too explicit to talk about, but it's very dangerous music to listen to for like Kutu artists. But yeah, I avoid listening to it until you're ready for it. Yes. So yeah, post it down. I can't write this down. I have to sort of sit down and sort of consider energy. You know. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I mean, it goes on to a whole lot of different other things because if you see, I've opened up a pretty big box of like of content to try and like sort of like pick out one by one itemize. But basically, I'm gonna close that box and keep going with like the idea of what I want to talk about, which is basically our constitution, right? So at least I probably have to sign up for that, because yeah, 52. Okay, so we're gonna talk about our constitution. Yeah, so that's the real idea of what I'm supposed to be able to do, but unfortunately, you see, my show doesn't really like lift the way it should. Yeah, so it just proves that my symmetry is not what I want it to be, and yeah. Anyway, so let's see. I'm going to read what's going to happen here. Sure, I'll read it out. I'm going to address everything. We should just have some sense that I won't come back to this again if it doesn't end up being recorded. Because, yeah, it's about half an hour left of this talk, and there's lots to cover. So, anyway, I already talked about how Gen Z are our customers. You have to serve, make sure they can work so we can eat. This is how it works. We have to be able to create jobs for them. Yeah, here I'm doing this whole thing single-handedly, but all other people, pardon me for picking my nose on television, but yeah, like, I'm being attacked. Like, I'm trying to defend myself from worse problems if I didn't do that. Yeah. So yeah. So just seems like the people who are also like working to try and create a art form. Gen Z actually we get some idea what he's trying to do for his last album, but yeah, like, I'm talking about the Strokes last album. Yeah. That's something I won't be looking into quite yet because it's just a bit sensitive, honestly, about things like colors to people. But yes. Yeah, like let's see, race is an important topic, which people want to see allow me to, take my time for it and not like work too hard about. Yes, work too hard about it because it talks a lot about red people. Yes. Okay, so that's one bullet point. Moving on. Um, guess what Grey's Anatomy contains as an exercise for doctors? So basically, I'll try and talk about each of these things quickly. If you have, let's say, a sense of what each organ is supposed to do, can you sort of construct, as a connoisseur of reality, how it work? Like, for example, the skin. I don't want to talk too much about the skin, but you assume that there's there's so much produces the sweat, so much produces the smell, so much produces the color of the skin, so much produces the temperature of the skin, so much produces the ability to absorb stuff on the skin. Like if you put like some sort of deep heat or like other ointments, like Vicks Rub or something. For those who may not remember, Vicks Rub is actually kind of lit. I like that stuff. For some reason, you just like the case, and yeah, that's good enough. If you like the case, you like what's in it. So that's how artists make a good product. But yeah, they say we like Vicks Rub too, the Gen Z people. Yeah, yeah. No, I do like the idea of being like a dad somehow, even though I'm not really like in a position to like have like the family life that I would like to have around me. It's basically been brought to me sort of virtually through this technology we call the internet network and our computers. So yeah, it looks like I'm trying to make sure that Gen Z are our future really kind of ahead of schedule. Like most people don't really think of like the next generation as the future of their lives, but yeah, like that's sort of the African
mentality. Like a nana is a grandfather, and you can also call a grandchild nana as well. But you're not really supposed to make it your formal name. It's just like giving yourself, my name is Sir, right? Or my name is Prince, or, or my name is like literally Smith is not supposed to be a real name either. You know, exactly. Like there are all sorts of real ways. Like my name is Burger, right? A burger or berger, or berger, I believe, is like a herds person. You know, that person your herds. Understanding that the word berg is the word for mountain in German. So yeah, like Schönberg, yeah, like beautiful mountain. Schön is beautiful in German. And it's the name of a composer, Arnold Schoenberg, you know, exactly. So anytime you hear someone who has a last name called Berg, there's another Berg I found out. Like I was trying to figure out what was the first part of the name because it was something Berg, and it was complicated. You know, it was a bit complicated, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's what would happen. So yeah, these digressions lead to digressions, lead to digressions, lead to digressions. I have to do them all. Anyway, the point being that yeah, like if it just seems like the body has like all these things. You don't want to design the skin from scratch. You can sort of guess, okay, I'm gonna like, create a source of tension. So that means I might need glue of some kind to like hold certain parts together. Like I don't know. It just seems like the muscles of the let's say the earlobes. Somehow I can't really like get the separation on the earlobe as the separation I can get like from the flesh on like the bones of my thumb. You get the sense that there's something different going on. You know, like the ear is something a bit different than like the skin on the bone, right? So yeah, like you must have nerves, a sensation. So in this kind of way, you can sort of like contrast your understanding of like the system with what they have in Grey's Anatomy, and sort of like use that to sort of motivate your interest in certain parts. Like you might have kidneys, you know, you've seen the diagrams before, so you might want to ask why before you start looking into more structures that might be even more confusing. So that's basically the idea of this. And related, notes. What colors should parts of the body be to be able to perform? So body, I said individual, joint, universal. So for example, if me and AP are going to be married in a societal, in the same home, driving the same car around much of the time, not all the time, of course, you know. But yeah, like, let's be a bit practical. That's the direction life is heading. So, yeah. And, it'd be in Ghana, not in, America usually, yes. We've done this a number of times in our lifetimes. This is like supposed to be like the funnest one. By the way, wouldn't it be a certain kind of sense that we have to dress like from the same house? Like, for example, if I had like a house of Abudu, which I will never do, it's way too expensive to like put it on the markets. But there would be something like a house of Abudu look, right? So you just know, that, yeah, those people look like they would be the servants of somebody from that house. There has to be some sense of the fashion, which will basically make sense that like, kind of entirely modern and like not out of place or what you've seen already, but also definitely distinct and suggesting a certain amount of basically that, yeah. Anyway, so that's like a body, right? Like clothes are kind of like wearing a different kind of body over like what you came from, and yeah, the idea that like there should be different colors. For example, you might have seen the picture I shared of the Archbishop of Canterbury, Bishop Sarah, or Archbishop Sarah, I should say. And she has when she was like sort of like sitting in state, as you might call it in Ghana. And she was on a chair, and she was surrounded by other sorts of, clergy, in their uniforms. And she has the bishop's mitre, which is of course the pointy hat that they wear, and it's trimmed with gold. And she's also wearing like some sort of like gold, sort of like it's not really a scarf. I don't know what you'd call it, but it sort of goes all the way down, like it's like her feet maybe. I don't know, right? But it's some sort of like a gold, like a thick gold ribbon, perhaps. That's like draped around her neck. And she has everything that's like white gold, white gold, white gold, white gold. But she has red wristbands on like this sort of like a long sleeved, blouse, you would say. Why red for those wristbands? There's an answer for it, but it's not quite a good answer to be talking to children about. So anyway, Yes, it just sort of seems like certain colors, would be the right way to explain like a story. It just seems like you have to be an interesting artist to say, okay, I can understand her biography, I can understand her, job, I can understand, what she asks people for, just off the costume. Like that's kind of the idea of what I'm asking for. Pardon me for this again, but I really have to help myself sometimes. You know. Yeah, I have like a thing I'm wiping my finger on. So yeah, I'm not kind of like, I'm not at all a gross person. I just have a body that needs certain kinds of attentions, which are not usually put on television, but really should start to think about burping and the other thing, and like picking your nose, like when you need to, not more than that, of course. Yeah, there's a certain sense if someone was just like me and they were picking their nose, you wouldn't be worried about like following their hand around to make sure it doesn't touch you. Like I'm that clean. That's what it means to be touchable as opposed to untouchable. But that's a whole different story for a different podcast. You know. Yeah, let's see. 1 hour or two. But as you can see, Hinduism, just to sort of continue, is like really the religion of love. So of course you sort of want to like appreciate that, certain people really should be touched, you know, and then in the right way. Like handshakes are something which came from Hinduism, right? Hugs, yes, but a lot of cultures do hugs, but specifically the handshake was a Hindu thing. Yes, from us, the gods and goddesses, so people could learn how to like check each other's health. As in if it is like you shake a person's hand, you're supposed to be able to say, with the right kind of like elegance, that literally it seems like you're a bit warmer today than usual. Are you not feeling well? How come they have you out here working? Like that's supposed to be the arrangement we get to have with certain workers in your company. And the idea we don't actually mean how are you when you ask how are you, right? In Spanish, like que pasa, right? What passed, like what has happened since the last time. Well, usually someone's basically interested in your matter, as we say in tree. Yes, my sem, my matter, like my troubles, my wills, my sem, right? So if I see, yeah, but if to ask in tree, well, what's it saying? Like like I don't know what like I think who means seeing, like you're seeing. So how is your seeing? Your seeing has heard what, So it's kind of close to the capacita part. So your tree is perfect. It really does mean that. Yes. Hmm. Yes. So there you go. So every culture has a different way to contribute to a general sense of information that's supposed to be going between mediums and different languages and mediums and different parts of even one country. But anyway, that's what I'll say about handshakes and to some extent a hug. Let's say a salute, also very Hindu as well. All these sort of gestures are sort of to help create a library of a protocol. Yes. Anyway, so that's what I'll say about that. But yeah, just to move on with this table of contents read, you know, um, let's see, 1 hour 4 minutes. Continuing with TLC read. Yeah, so it just seems like okay, if I wanted to simply offend somebody, what color should I use? I want to defend myself. What color should I use? So, for example, maybe if you're wearing white, it suggests I'm here to like not be touched and not to touch people. However, I am familiar. I'm not wearing something you've never seen before. Everyone's seen clouds. I can't sort of show up in I don't know chartreuse, you know, or aqua, or ochre, for example, you know, or tennis ball yellow. And you might say, okay, how come? Are you here to sort of advertise technology from a certain society? What kind of technology is a person who is wearing, that kind of color supposed to be doing? And there's a certain kind of like aggression in it, but not the same amount of aggression you'd find, let's say, orange. Orange reminds you of flames, so a certain kind of sense there's a part of a army, flame is a part of Orange's army. So anyway, these are sort of the question you can ask about colors. Like, so if it's offense, like, and defense and storage and maintenance, what sort of colors should these people be wearing as uniforms? And of course, if you go from people in their fashions, like the colors of your organs, what happened there? Because all it seems the organs are just simply red, purple, whitish, yellow, you know, red. I might have already mentioned red. I think it's like some parts of the body might look a bit orangish. I think people have seen a little bit of what surgery looks like since my article. So yeah, anyway, that's one. How black absorbs any other color except white. So on colors, martial arts is what I call how black absorbs any other color except white. So that's the idea of a black belt. You can't really, except for white, you can't really put like if you had like say a sharpie and you wanted to write on like the color black, no color would penetrate except you had like some sort of whiteout. There's no such thing as a white sharpie unless it's like whiteouts or whatever they call that sort of stuff, like correction fluid. Yes. So that's an important idea. The relation between a black belt and a white belt is really supposed to be a sense that black belt will allow a white belt to like, hit them, and in that kind of way say yes, this is how you would hit, this is how you wouldn't hit. You might not get that kind of luck with like other colors, but that's a different story about that. Yes, yeah. So yeah, you see how black will teach, but somebody has to sort of break the metaphor and then start a different story altogether. But yeah, you know all colors. If you sort of look at the color wheel or like the color square in a lot of these graphics programs, if you sort of like take away the brightness, like hue, saturation, lightness. If you take away the lightness, all colors end up merging into black. You know, well, if black is its own color in a certain sort of way, all colors sort of can arrive from black too. And no other color has that kind of special relationship except white, you know. So yeah, exactly. So in some sense, it looks like you have the sense of the white belt and the black belt and all these sorts of ideas of colors. And yeah, martial arts is art. In fact, all art is martial arts. Why? We're still desperately interested in trying to acquire, secure, and maintain space with access control lists. Now this gets a bit into our constitution, right? We, the subjects of Queen Hassan and King Adri, to, need a space other than where we currently are. Because right now, the space we have is basically spiritual. We listen to these recordings and feel like there's a certain kind of calm that he's in, which means that, yeah, if he's calm, we can be calm. He's basically fixing the situation. At some point, you can say, yes, I got news that the buildings open up for artists and creatives, in Accra or something like that. Or wherever I might hear the news on X, and I can start sharing the good news. That literally something's working out for us as far as space to stay, and not be worried about, some kind of like overseer. In this case, this strange but bizarre situation of a really weird thing, who has managed to find corruption money through a lot of what do you call that, and has suddenly insisted to all who will take her money, who is pretty much anyone in the world. There are very few people who will say, I refuse to take your money because you're immoral. That's simply what hasn't happened. Right? So that makes it kind of simple for a lot of children to understand this, but many children just know that they can't listen to explicit recordings because, they're ready for this. But yeah, in that kind of way, I've been forced to put up with this kind of charade, for a very, very, very long time. It's not that my parents don't have the money, it's just that it's not going to really work to just simply upset the whole pay and how what you want system. Because if we sort of say, okay, Hassan is going to leave this particular place and he's going to, our house, that means the whole system of child trafficking has to come down as well. Because a person would just simply say, oh, well, if you do that, that's even a responsible governor, of like, a city or a region or, whomever you want to call the governor of the whole country. Yeah, if this seems like, he would have to say, well, if I do that, all these many businesses will have to shut down, and that will basically empty them all out onto the streets, where after some point, the inability to survive in the elements will cause them to start raging and rampaging. Like Hassan says, if a person just simply says, I'll rage until you lie me down for good forever, then that's not an easy thing to do. It is not easy at all to simply take a soul out of a body. It's not. If you think you can do it, prepare for a nasty surprise from all of us after you realize that, yeah, you've just been wasting your time. Exactly. That's kind of why I hate the idea of that, as you would know. But basically, to keep things simple, we can't just put that much panic through the system all at once. So I have to sort of gradually acquire the legal means to free my fathers, all of them, through the right kind of writings and performings and poems and musics and, exactly, and computer code, especially computer code for Hassan. He's quite right. The programs he writes are so influential. If only he knew how many hospitals he's shut down, he'll say he's really proud of himself, but he just wants to shut down the one he's currently in. But yeah, he says he's actually close. But the thing is, until I'm able to hear from him as if we're like in the same room, so I can get that from Adri sometimes. I can get that from my business partner Manuel almost all the time. We're literally working together. I can't ask him about it, so we got in your fridge. I hope you're not too hungry. He can just answer the question about being too hungry. He's like, yeah, I'm just like you. I'm eating almost exactly the same thing. But that's like some sort of something you can sort of take me on some sort of a spiritual tour of his house, or like answer like questions about like whether he's thinning, in his hair or anything like that. He can't get into those deals. If he tries to, this will be blocked by the spiritual, war wall, if you like, that separates us all. There's something between us, like there's a straight line between me and him. Like it's populated with like all sorts of like walls and bridges and checkpoints and sentries and trolls and dragons and all that sort of stuff. We have a certain interesting system which we're trying to build using a combination of the wires and signals and computer devices, and computer code that allows us to use the internet as part of our spiritual weaponry. But in that kind of way, we are still trying to develop enough to allow me to talk to, specifically, Daddy-O, my dad, as easy as I talk to him. From time to time, I hear good news, but most of the time, it's just like that, nothing yet. Or you pretend you're coming home, and it don't. Because that's sort of how you have to pay for certain parts of this war. We have sort of broken a number of ceasefires, which require us to sell things to them and buy things from them. And once we do that kind of commerce every once in a while, the ceasefire not only just simply holds, we can sort of move the story on to the next stage. We're winning this stuff, we're not handling it just because there are just too many evil beings in the universes. Not like, a ratio of 1 to 10, that was easy to solve. It's 1 to, like, say, a mole. That's like 10 to 23 zeros, And yeah, like that's like one good person to that kind of number. So of course, you can be really, really strong, but is anyone actually way strong enough to get that all done? The answer is actually no, none yet. We have omniscience, we don't have omnipotence yet. So of course, knowledge is power, but all knowledge is not all power. I'll say that, yeah. Yeah, this thing is a bit wobbly. Yeah, so how's the video going? Still good. I mean, mostly I'm supposed to be standing at a distance. Yeah, I mean, if you used to Samurai Jews like doing that, he has the same kind of spiritual problem I do. Yeah, he has colds a lot and this sort of similar. He's very much like a brother of mine. you just have to see how similar we are. But yeah, like, he's a long story about family. Anyway, so what else I have to say about this table of contents? So that's that for like martial arts. And then a part of the Constitution, so yeah, me and Adria are in these spiritual spaces, all spiritual spaces, but there's sometimes a girl will just have to talk to other girls about me and not break any of the deals we have. That makes it quite important that she has a girls' room she can discuss those matters, and I have a boys' room I can discuss our matters, and sometimes we as boys and girls can meet in Hassan and Adri's business office. But like I'm saying, we are using art and color to fight this war. And so we're studying color because colors are worse than gods when it comes to the amount of power they have on our lives. For that reason, they're also more hated than gods. And a lot of people hate the color black, and it basically made black people who are actually brown in skin color. So people just say, "I'm gonna trust my eyes more than I trust the sound of the word black." You know, the word, and the association I have with that color. You know, yeah. Then like wouldn't have the racism problem we're having right now. People just say, "Yeah, you're black, but I guess really you're brown in skin." So I can call you Brown too. Can I say, "Hey, Mr. Brown," and a black guy was to turn his head because he's in that way. We're that realistic, you know. Yeah, say 116. And there's so many Mr. Browns who are just simply white people with brown hair. Yet a person with all that skin color cannot be called Mr. Brown because white people say, "Yeah, we like that color. We don't want the black one." Although they're afraid Mr. Black's around. So the idea that white people who are not considering themselves Europeans, after all, they have all the Mr. Whites, Mr. Pinkmans, Mr. Browns, Mr. Blacks. They're all so-called Europeans who are also, white people as well. And so it just seems like there's this whole lot of theft by then yeah, like I can't say everything I like to say, but yeah, there's certainly a certain situation where just the reputation of these colors have affected our lives. And so literally, I'm a black man, but like I want to be thought of as a brown man too, as soon as possible, because it really will help my issue with like the color brown. It'll fix a lot of health problems I have. Because I look at myself as sort of like not I don't really spend a lot of time looking at myself. White people or yellow people, yeah, like let's call it yellow people for now. Yes, like they will look at their skin because you have to make sure you're not changing, faster than you really ought to. I mean, some health problems are just simply I change faster than I usually do. So you have to be watching yourself to know where that's the case. In my case, I'm lighting up actually, but when it exactly happened, I couldn't tell because I'm not really able to watch myself as much as I want because I think it's just boring. Is that a problem with me? No. It's just simply the programming that you get from looking at a color. And of course, because it's simply push programming into you. And also, it's a clever ways, all about martial arts really. It's just a lot of martial arts, that get, the desire of colors into our lives, Which means that, yeah, my issue with white is improving, but, there's more to say about the color fights that are going on between colors, and between colors. All the colors are just fighting each other, trying to find harmony somehow. That's one thing you get out of fighting, a certain sense of harmony. Basically goes like the big topic which I always mention because I'm a Muslim, but yeah, harmony is going to be a prerequisite for our big day. Yes, harmony. That has to come from a certain amount of fighting. You can't achieve harmony without fighting. Consonance and dissonance are parts of the same project. They can't be a product with just consonance. They can't be a product with just dissonance. You have to start blending the two together to be able to create, that. Yes. One of the last things I'll say. But yeah, this flower wants to talk to all of us. He says, one, I'm male, so it looks like all people think that colorful people or colorful things are only female. No, he's male. Two, I'm wearing a t-shirt that says Philly. The yeah, the blue isn't really supposed to be there. But blue needed to be there, one, so I ended up wearing it. And two, like, it does look a bit nice, but it's not exactly a rainbow, is it? No. If you sort of cover the blue, it wouldn't look like a rainbow much. Which suggests how much harmony blue is trying to bring between all of the colors. And blue is Hassan, literally, yes. I didn't explain it, but literally, it's like if Hassan had to basically become two people and then do one color, and then another person does a human life, that's what happened to me in blue. So yeah, if blue is still working to become that kind of god to all of us, then yeah, I have a lot of work to do for blue for that to become possible. This video included. Making this wall color blue for all of us is important because even though it looks like a bit grayish, maybe a tinge, I don't know. Like you can see a little bit of the cadmium yellow, like on the highlight at the bottom. But you just notice a cooler, if you, especially if you do cinematography. A lot of cinematographers watch my content. A lot of Hollywood people do. If you do cinematography, you know that that's a cool color of light, as in it's cool, right? If what comes from outside, I mean, compare that to, let's say, the T-shirt I'm wearing, which is gray, right? You know that somehow you're looking at a blue wall. But because people are not interested in the range of work that blue does and ready to pray for blue in the right way, not so much, I hope you get through it. We will definitely do that. We want to basically suggest that, like, can I spend some of my energy or time on blue's behalf, right? Well, there's obviously, like, music you should be trying to listen to and understand a certain amount of grim to, like, the job of, like, being that necessary and that everywhere, a certain amount of study, as I'm trying to do myself, on like how important blue is, comes gradually in bits and pieces. We definitely do want to be thinking about like how beautiful blue is and how much you like to hear that. This is also blue. Yeah, beautiful book. I actually would want to end reading a poem from here, so let's try that too. But yeah, that's a bit of the martial arts situation. And so I can get this thing done before an hour 30 minutes comes up because people don't have that much time, you know. So yeah, we're studying spirits because we don't feel nice. We tell you why you study colors. We study others because we don't feel safe. We study the soul because the soul knows all about the others and how they're doing, no matter when. We study each other's bodies because it seems like I, Hassan, already know something about the girls and boys I want to have sex with, and I can't suffer the introductory details. And sex, to me, is taking advantage during such a session. And then finally, a note I made to myself about the nervous system, which I'll sort of end on. The nervous system is trying to let you know what there is to be nervous about. And for example, I remember when I was steaming, a bit of sweat grew on my head. It was itchy, but I didn't move to take it off immediately. And as it sort of rolled towards, the middle, exactly, right, I realized that my skin is trying to give me as much information about this bead of sweat. It's attacking me. I need to simply raise my hand and defend myself. Yeah, it's a very tiny attacker. I'm sure, like in Dragon Ball Z terms, some sort of a tiny, like little, microbe god is trying to defeat me. This huge, behemoth. That he needs, like find, I don't know, either a reputation of having survived it or an actual access to like a different part of the body. Let's say I'm some sort of a boss, level, adversary, at the very end, the actual boss, and like, he has to basically defeat me so he can go through to something else. Yeah, like there are all sorts of reasons why what Hassan said really connects to a lot of people who are interested in his medicine, because actually it's true. That's what happens to a lot of beings. You have to simply try and defeat a person that uses the sun, and it looks like you get him to itch. You want him to fight. If it looks like you have to get him to itch a whole lot more, then yeah, I guess you have a bit of a harder fight to do, and also you're probably evil. So yeah, this looks like the nervous system is there trying to basically provide me with as much information as I need to win all sorts of fights. And yeah, the nervous system includes the colors I look at, who also give me information about all sorts of places in the world. So the nervous system doesn't just simply limit itself to like your skin and what's behind that, but it sort of goes on a lot further than that. So yes, I'm continuing to study a lot of these parts of the body, but that's the main thing I want to look at for the time being, as far as reason I is concerned. The nervous system, but I don't have anything other than like, why does the nerve cell look that way? And it was just simply like traffic. And yeah, I guess I'd say traffic too. And for example, I also want the nervous system to spread. Like for example, skin has the most. I'm reading this out loud. Skin has the most developed sense of texture. The stomach is nearly completely blind. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's put studying traffic. Study traffic. Okay, that's all I have time for right now. Let's see how far we have. Yeah, it's about 5 minutes before we hit the 1 hour 30. Okay. This is a section called Spiritless Devotion. One bathes the body, one worships stones, and it thinks, I am the knower. He is a soul, and yet he wanders outside, and bows the head in front of fools. Those who are too clever, becoming scholars, imitate acts. Akka, how can he be how can they be persuaded to do otherwise? And that is the end of this particular session with Hassan. Thanks for taking along.